Jonas removed like a ghost across the broken skin of Dravenine. Every step cracked the red soil. Every breath burned like rust in his throat. The air here was never still. It howled through jagged stone and wilted black trees like it was morning. The world's death over and over. His boots were half melted at the edges, stained with green ash and blood, some of it his, most of it not. He was alone now. The Hapir runner had torn itself apart 3 days ago, engines flaring and then failing mid-drop. The others hadn't made it. Metal tore through flesh, fire stole the air, and Jonas, just the mechanic, just the one who fixed things, was the only one left breathing. He clutched his scanner in one hand and a rusting laser pistol in the other. The scanner blinked weakly, pulsing with short, struggling beeps. His signal beacon back at the wreck was too far gone. This was the last stretch. He needed parts. Fuel, metal. Anything. Then the scanner chirped. Sharper, louder. Metal. 30 meters ahead. Jonas frowned. His eyes lifted. Just beyond the cracked ridge, the terrain dipped into a gaping scar in the land. The toxic swamp. Even from this distance he could feel it. A sickening heat rising like breath from a dying beast. Bubbling sludge covered the ground in thick pools of green. It hissed when wind passed over it. Nothing lived there. Nothing ever walked out. Great, he muttered. Of course it's in the swamp. He climbed over a collapsed tree and crouched low. A shape protruded from the bubbling mire. Sharp, dark, metal. Maybe scrap. He crept closer. Boots crunching brittle ground. It wasn't scrap. He froze. It was a body partially submerged. The armor was strange, ancient looking. Scratched and faded, but not destroyed. Only the head and one arm remained above the surface. The helmet was cracked. Vines clung to the edges. Moss and swamp scum covered the chest plate. Whoever it was, they were sinking, slowly, silently. Jonas stared. No movement. Dead maybe. He turned to leave. Then he heard it. Soft. Broken. Help? He spun around. What? Silence. The swamp hissed. Then again. Barely audible. Help, please. His heart punched his ribs. He took a step back, shaking his head. No way. Not going in there. It's suicide. He looked down at his gloves. At the rope slung over his shoulder. At the bubbling green death pulling her under. Another second. She'd vanish. Damn it. He dropped the scanner. Tied the rope around his waist. Secured it to the base of a blackened tree. He wrapped his arms in scorched cloth and adjusted his melted gloves. I must be the dumbest man alive, he muttered. Then stepped into the swamp. It was like walking into fire. His boots hissed. The outer layer sizzled and began to peel. Every step burned. His calves screamed. The fumes seared his eyes. He kept going. She was close now, head barely above the surface. Lips trembling. He reached out. Her arm moved, weakly. I got you. He whispered. The swamp pulled harder, like it didn't want to let her go. But Jonas pulled harder. The rope strained. His hand screamed. His legs gave way once. But he gritted his teeth and pulled with everything left in him. And then finally they broke free. They collapsed onto the cracked edge of dry land. Jonas rolled over, gasping. Smoke rose from his sleeves. Blisters burst beneath his gloves. The woman lay still beside him. Alien. Skin pale with strange silver markings on her forehead. Her armor, though ancient and broken, still glowed faintly beneath the grime. Jonas fumbled for his med spray, applied it to her arm. Her chest was rising, barely. He leaned closer, breathing hard. Her lips parted. One word escaped. Kyara. The shelter was nothing more than a hollowed-out escape pod patched with scavenged panels and lined with thermal sheets. But tonight it held something rare. Hope. Jonas crouched beside the strange woman he'd pulled from the swamp, watching her chest rise and fall in uneven rhythm. Every few minutes he checked the med spray level, even though he wasn't sure if it worked on her kind. The burns on his arms had already blistered and peeled, but he ignored them. His eyes stayed on her. She hadn't moved since she whispered. That one name, Kyara. Was it her name? Someone else's? A place? He didn't know. He only knew that he had touched death today. Then dragged it back. Outside, the storm howled over Dravagnine's cracked skin. Dust flew like knives. Power flickered inside the shelter as if the walls themselves weren't sure they could hold back the darkness. Jonas sat down at last, letting his weight slump against the cold wall. What did I just do? He whispered. Then he heard it. A cough. He snapped upright. She was awake barely. Her fingers twitched. Her eyes opened. They glowed, just faintly, blue, like soft lightning. In a storm. Jonas didn't move. Easy, he said gently. You're safe. Her gaze darted around. Panic flared in her face. She sat up too fast, groaned, and clutched her shoulder. He saw pain ripple through her muscles. Hey, slow down, he said, holding out his hands. You were in the swamp. I pulled you out. Her lips moved. No sound came. Her eyes narrowed at him. Then she tried again. Human. Her voice was cracked, raw, almost mechanical, as if unused for too long. Yeah, Jonas said. Jonas mechanic, you? She blinked. Her lips moved slowly, like they were remembering how to speak. Kyara, he nodded. Kyara. Okay. Do you remember what happened? She frowned, touched her head, then her chest plate. Her fingers ran along the armor, pausing on a strange pattern etched into the metal swirls of fire and stars. Ceremonial? Not standard military. Jonas had seen enough gear to know the difference. I remember water, she said, and pain. And darkness. Jonas offered her a water pack. She took it with shaky fingers. As she drank, he noticed her wounds were already healing. Cuts that should take days were already closing. Her skin, pale and dusted with faint shimmer, was stitching itself back together. That's not normal, he muttered under his breath. She finished the water and sat still, her eyes fixed on him like he was the puzzle now. Jonas turned away and started fiddling with a broken power cell to distract himself. He didn't know what else to do. Then the shelter lights blinked. He looked up. She hadn't moved. But the dead beacon beside the medkit, something that hadn't worked since the crash, flashed once. Then again. Then stayed dark. Jonas frowned. Okay, that's weird. Kyara didn't seem to notice. The next hour passed in silence. Jonas stayed up, watching her, trying to make sense of what he'd brought back. She slept fitfully. Her fingers twitched. Once, she whispered something in a language he didn't understand. He was too tired to guess. The adrenaline had faded. Now only the pain in his arms remained. As the red sun rose over Dravagnine's jagged hills. Jonas dragged himself to the outer ridge to check the scanner again. The signal beacon was still down. He sighed and kicked the side of the panel. It blinked once. Then again. Then turned on. His eyes widened. A voice came through static covered. Weak but real. Dominion fleet, Dravik system. Possible recon presence confirmed. He froze. Dominion. Threx. He single quotes. Heard those words before. Long-range warbands, destroyers, conquerors, ghost stories. No one who saw a Threx fleet up close lived to talk about it. He looked back toward the shelter. Kyara was standing now, barely balanced, staring at the screen from across the room. Her mouth slightly open, her body tense. You know them? Jonas asked. Her voice was cold, firm. Yes. He waited. She didn't elaborate. Jonas stepped closer. Who are you, Kyara? Really? Her glowing eyes turned to him. Her jaw clenched. For a long time she said nothing. Then finally, in a voice low and grave, They are the reason I was thrown into the swamp. They feared me, feared what I carried. Jonas's heart thumped hard. Feared you? Kyara closed her eyes. I fought them once, long ago, before betrayal, before silence. Jonas stared. She wasn't just some lost traveler, not some scientist or pilot. He looked at her armor again, older than anything he'd ever seen. Glowing lines, half-faded symbols. And that name, the Flame of Varnar, I doubt a myth. A legend. A warrior who defied the Dominion before vanishing forever. Jonas' single quotes as stomach dropped. You're saying that's you? Kyara's eyes flared brighter. Her voice, though cracked, held strength now. I was not just a warrior. I was their fire. The storm didn't end. It never did on Dravagnine. The clouds above churned like molten ash, lit now and then by lightning without thunder. The wind carried whispers of old wars, of broken oaths, of names lost in dust. Jonas sat cross-legged. Near the fire pit, torchlight flickering across his soot-covered hands. Beside him, the broken power relay sparked gently as he rewired it for the third time. Kyara was across the room, her back straight, her gaze locked on the wall screen that now pulsed with static. She hadn't spoken much since the signal came through, but her eyes burned with memory. Dominion fleet entering Dravik system. Jonas had played the message a dozen times, and each time Kyara's face grew colder. What do they want with a dead planet? He asked aloud. Kyara didn't answer at first. Then she turned slowly like a statue coming to life. This planet isn't dead, she said. Not to them, he blinked. What do you mean? She walked toward him. Every step was deliberate, like she was remembering how to walk with purpose again. This land, she said, hides something powerful, something ancient. Jonas raised an eyebrow. Like your sword? Kyara paused. More than that. It hides the blade and the vault that guards it. Jonas leaned back against a rusted crate. What vault? Her eyes flicked toward the distance, toward the mountains just barely visible through the cracks in the shelter's wall, beneath the stone. Beneath the bones of this world, a precursor vault, sealed long before the Threx came. Before even I was born. Precursor? Jonas muttered. You mean the lost race, the ones who left behind. Ruins no one understands, she nodded. They built weapons, engines, memory machines, and doors no one can open. Except? Her gaze fixed on him. Except humans. Jonas laughed, then stopped when she didn't join him. You're serious. The vault was designed to respond only to human DNA, she said. The precursor believed your kind carried something. Unique, he frowned. That doesn't make any sense. We barely made it to the stars a few centuries ago. And yet, Kyara said quietly, you're the only ones the vault will answer. A silence fell between them, filled only by the soft hum of repaired circuitry and the crackle of fire. Jonas stared at her. So you're telling me, this whole time, the galaxy's been looking for power, for weapons, for hope. And it's been buried here, waiting for a human? Kyara nodded. And you've been waiting too? Not by choice, she said. I was betrayed. They feared I'd return to the vault. Feared I'd awaken what sleeps below. He rubbed his face. This is insane. Then he saw it. Her hand trembled. Just barely, not from weakness, but from restraint. From remembering she was scared. Kyara, he said, voice softening. What's in the vault? She turned away. Her voice came like wind through stone. The Starori blade, forged from a fallen star. It burns with the fire of resistance. Jonas stood up. So we go get it. Kyara turned back, startled. You'd come with me? I'm not letting the Dominion dig it up first, he said. You said only I can open it. Then let's move. A long pause. Then Kyara whispered, "You're not afraid?" Jonas gave a bitter smile. "I'm terrified." But that never stopped me before. An hour later, they stood at the edge of a great canyon known only by the survivors as the Bone Hollow, named for the twisted metal and fossilized wreckage that jutted out like ribs from the canyon walls. The wind howled through it like it remembered every scream. Kyara stood tall, her old armor patched, her back straight once more. Jonas carried a field pack, tools strapped to his belt. He looked down into the abyss and exhaled. "You're sure it's down there?" "I hit it myself," Kyara said. They began their descent. The rocks cracked beneath their boots. Glowing vines pulsed along the path, reacting to Kyara's presence. The air grew colder. The silence heavier. Finally, at the bottom, they reached it, a blank wall of black stone. Smooth, seamless. "This is it?" Jonas asked. Kyara stepped aside, touched the center. He hesitated, then raised his hand and pressed it against the stone. For a moment, nothing. Then the wall shimmered like mist. It dissolved. Beyond it, a glowing tunnel spiraled down into darkness. "Holy!" "The vault is awake," Kyara said. They stepped inside. The air changed. It felt alive. Walls pulsed with soft blue light. Strange symbols danced across the stone, flickering like thoughts. The tunnel was lined with holographic ghosts' images from long-lost stars and forgotten wars. Jonas swallowed. "This place is watching us." "No," Kyara said. "It's watching you." They reached a circular chamber. 3 tall pillars stood around a central platform, one marked with a heart, another with a flame, the last a hand. A diamond-shaped crystal hovered in the air. The room trembled. A voice spoke, not loud, but felt deep in their bones. Flame of Varnari recognized. "Human access required. Begin trial." Jonas stepped forward, blinking. "Trial?" he muttered. "What kind of trial?" A wall rose between them. Kyara stood behind it now, separated by glowing energy. "I can't help you now," she said. "This is your path." Jonas turned to the center as the crystal pulsed. "Trial 1, the voice said. "Heart. Answer this. What makes a warrior worthy?" The room spun. Images appeared. Battles, kings, fallen soldiers, fire raining from the sky. Then children screaming. Civilians crushed under rubble. Jonas single quotes as hands clenched. "Not power," he whispered. "Not orders." He looked up. "A warrior is worthy when they protect those who can't protect themselves." The crystal pulsed brighter. Accepted. The air grew heavier as Jonas stepped deeper into the vault. The chamber behind him faded into darkness, and the echo of Kyara's voice vanished like breath on cold glass. What lay ahead was not just ancient, it was alive, humming with memory. Humming with judgment. "Trial 2, the voice announced. Double quotes flame. Face fear." A cold wind slammed through the corridor. Lights blinked out one by one until Jonas stood in perfect blackness. Then silence. He took a cautious step forward. The floor felt like stone, but it pulsed heartbeat, soft, slow. His breath quickened. Every instinct screamed to turn around. Then came the voice, his own voice. "You're not a warrior." Jonas spun around. "Who's there?" "You failed them," the voice whispered from the dark. "Your team. You couldn't fix the engine in time. You left them to burn." Shadows shifted. Something stepped forward. Jonas's heart stopped. It was him. Same face. Same build, but covered in burns, blood, grief, eyes sunken. Lips curled in disgust. "You think one good deed erases everything?" the shadow Jonas said. "You think pulling her from the swamp makes you a hero?" Jonas stepped back. "I didn't ask for this." "Exactly," the shadow snapped. "You weren't chosen. You were convenient. You just happened to be alive." The words stung because they weren't entirely false. Jonas clenched his fists. The memory of the crash hit him like a blade. The screams in the fire. The failure in his hands. The shadow stepped closer, towering over him. "You're still scared?" Jonas's voice broke. "Yes, silence. Then, but I'm here anyway." The shadow blinked. "I wake up every day wishing I died with them," Jonas whispered. "But I didn't, so I move forward. Not because I'm not afraid, but because I am." The shadow's face twitched. "Fear isn't weakness," Jonas said. "It's fuel." The figure began to break apart, light tearing through the cracks in its form. Trial passed. The vault's voice said, "A door slid open ahead." Jonas stepped through, his hands trembling. Not from fear, but from truth. The final chamber loomed. Before him, massive, circular, the walls etched with gold lines and ancient glyphs that floated like dust in the air. At the center, suspended in light, hovered a long blade, elegant, curved, glowing with blue-white fire. The starry blade. It spun slowly, whispering with each turn. Jonas took a step closer. The vault pulsed again. Trial 3. Hand. Offend. Ama. Deafening screech shattered the silence. From the ceiling, something dropped. A mechanical guardian, tall, sleek, with insect-like limbs and eyes that burned red. It moved like liquid metal, fast and brutal. Jonas ducked the first swipe. No weapons. No escape. He ran, grabbed a loose metal rod from the wall, and spun just in time to deflect a strike. Sparks flew. Pain shot up his arms. "Come on, think. The guardian lunged again. Jonas dove under it, spotted a cluster of wires exposed beneath its joint. He rolled, stabbed the rod into the wires. The guardian shrieked. Lights inside. Its body flared. Jonas grabbed a second rod and slammed it into the same spot. A burst of energy exploded outward. The guardian collapsed in a heap of smoking limbs. Jonas dropped the rods, chest heaving. The chamber glowed. Trial complete. Vault said, "Story chosen." The blade lowered. Jonas stepped forward, his hand wrapped around the hilt. It was warm, almost alive. Energy surged up his arm, through his bones. Not painful, but ancient, powerful. Behind him, the chamber doors opened. Kya stepped in. She stopped, eyes wide. The blade remained in Jonas's hand, pulsing brighter. She approached, reaching toward it. The blade did not move. "It chose you," she said softly. Jonas' single quotes S throat tightened. "But you're the flame." Kyara smiled, eyes glowing. Faintly. "Maybe the flame was never mine alone. Maybe I was just the spark." Before he could answer, the vault shook violently. An alarm screamed through the corridors. Red symbols lit the walls, 3 black spikes in a circle. Kyara's face hardened. "The Threx have found us." Double quotes. Jonas turned toward the exit. "How?" "They must have felt the blade's awakening. So what do we do now?" She looked at him, her voice sharp with command. "We run." They sprinted back through the glowing corridors. The walls flashed warnings. Dust fell from the ceiling. The vault wasn't just alert, it was preparing to seal itself. Outside, the sky had turned blood red. Enemy ships circled like vultures. Explosions echoed through the mountains. Jonas and Kyara ducked behind a ridge, watching black ships descend. "There. Already here," he said, gripping the blade tighter. Kyara watched the smoke rising from the far valley. "They'll destroy everything. If they get the blade, hope dies with it." Jonas looked around. A group of villagers fled across the wasteland. Others had taken shelter in old caves. He saw their faces, terrified, forgotten. "We can't hide forever," he said. Kyara nodded. "We won't, but we need more than just a blade." He turned to her. "Then what do we need?" She looked up at the sky, where more dropships approached. "We need an army." The sky over Dravenine was no longer just red, it was on fire. Black ships scarred the heavens, their engines screaming through the clouds. The land trembled as drop pods slammed into the hills, releasing Threx hunters in armor of obsidian and crimson. Plasma bolts stitched the horizon, reducing stone to glass. Trees became ash. Villages once hidden between the broken ridges now burned like signal flares in the dark. Jonas stood on the ridge, the starry blade slung across his back. His hands trembled not from fear this time, but from the sheer weight of what was coming. Beside him, Kyara scanned the valley with cold, calculating eyes. She looked like a warrior again, her armor cleaned, reforged with parts Jonas had salvaged, her posture sharp, decisive. But even she looked small against the sky. How many? Jonas asked. Too many, Kyara said, for now. He turned to her. You said we need an army. How do we get one in 2 days? She didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on a ruined outpost in the distant, smoke trailing into the heavens. We don't build it, she said. We remind them. Remind who? The forgotten, she said. The scattered, the broken. Those who lost everything when the Threx came the first time. Jonas stared at her. They're survivors, not soldiers. Kyara looked at him then, eyes like steel beneath a storm. So were we. They moved fast. From one shattered camp to another. From the tunnels beneath old mining towns to the remains of once thriving outposts. Kyara walked into each place without fear, standing tall before people who had given up on hope. Some were human, others alien. Many bore scars, missing limbs, burned faces, children with hollow eyes, and every time Kyara spoke, they came to destroy, she said. But we are still here. She told him about the vault, the trials, the blade, Jonas. She spoke of betrayal, of fire, of standing alone and then standing together. Jonas didn't know how to speak like that. But he fixed things. He built defenses from rusted drone frames, repaired old comms units, wired broken solar panels into shield generators. He showed farmers how to use scrap to make EMP traps. He taught children how to maintain water filters. In one camp, he climbed atop a shipping crate and shouted to the crowd, "We don't have warships, or fleets, or perfect weapons. We've got rusted tools and broken armor. But we've got each other, and we've got something they fear more than fire, hope." And somehow, people listened. Word spread faster than he expected. The flame had returned. Starry Blade was awake. A mechanic and a ghost had begun to build an army within days. Fighters trickled in one by one, then dozens. Smugglers, deserters, miners, escaped prisoners, old resistance veterans who still wore faded insignias. They came with patched armor and mismatched rifles. But they came. Kyara trained them. Not just to fight, but to lead. Anyone can hold a weapon, she told them. But courage is not forged in steel, it is found in choice. Jonas built the Jonas command center from the wreck of a downed cargo hauler. The panels still sparked. The floor groaned with every footstep, but it worked. He wired a stolen Dominion radar dish into an old survey drone and pointed it skyward. The screen flickered to life. Red blips. Hundreds of them. They're coming. Jonas said. Kyara didn't flinch. Then we make our stand here. The chosen battlefield was a valley of broken glass and jagged stone, a place once shattered by orbital bombardment. They called it the Valley of Shards. Its fractured walls gave cover. Its cliffs hid turrets and mines. The night before the battle, Jonas walked the ridge alone. He looked down at the valley where his people, his accidental army, slept in makeshift tents and armored crawler shells. Torches flickered in the dark. Laughter echoed in pockets. For the first time in years, someone was telling a joke. Kyara approached him, silent as ever. "You should sleep," she said. "You think I can?" He asked. She was quiet. Then, you carry too much. He looked at her. So do you, she nodded once. But you're not alone. Jonas sat on a cracked boulder. Kyara sat beside him. If we lose, he said, they'll burn everything. Then we don't lose. He chuckled. You always sound so sure. Because doubt is a fire, she said. And I've burned. Long enough. In the hours before dawn, they stood before the gathered army. Jonas wore armor, now mismatched plates over his mechanic suit, a shield unit on one wrist, the starry blade strapped across his back. He scanned the crowd. Faces. Stared back. Old, young, alien, human. All waiting. Kyara stepped forward. The firelight caught the silver marks on her forehead. Her voice was calm, but it echoed like thunder. I was betrayed. I was buried, but I was not broken, she said. And I stand here because one human chose to save a stranger. Because he believed in something more. She turned to Jonas, then back to the crowd. They fear us because they know the truth. They ruled with fear. But fear dies when we stand together. Cheers erupted, and across the shattered valley, a spark lit in every soul. As the sun rose over Dravagnyne, black Threx dropships descended from the clouds, engines screaming. Kyara drew her blade. Jonas powered the shield grid. The final stand had begun. The smoke still rose from the Valley of Shards, curling into the sky like the last breath of a dying god. Where black ships once hovered, only firelight remained. Metal carcasses littered the battlefield, crushed drones, shattered exosuits, and the warped remains of Dominion walkers. The ground still glowed in places where plasma had kissed it. The air reeked of ozone, ash, and blood, but it was quiet now, not peaceful. Not yet. But quiet. Jonas sat on a flat stone, his hands trembling as he wrapped the burn on his side with a torn strip of cloth. His armor hung off him in pieces. His tool belt was empty. His pulse wrench was cracked. He had nothing left to give, and still he was here. So were the others. Survivors gathered across the valley in silence. Some stood shoulder to shoulder, too tired to speak. Others dropped to their knees beside fallen friends, touching armor, whispering names, making promises. Children helped the wounded. Farmers carried soldiers. A miner from the northern hills offered Kyara a flask of filtered water like it was a sacred gift. Kyara stood at the center of them all. Not at the highest point, not on a pedestal, just beside her people. Her armor was blackened, but the starori blade still glowed softly at her side. She looked around. At the humans. At the aliens. At the forgotten. They looked back at her. And someone began to clap. Softly. Then another. And another, until the valley shook with a different kind of sound, one born not of fear, but of hope. Kyara turned to Jonas. This is what you did. He shook his head. We did it, she smiled. You lit the flame, Jonas. And you carried it. 2 days later, in the remains of an old trade post, they built a platform out of broken ship panels and collapsed satellite dishes. Flags made from old cloth fluttered in the toxic wind, patched with old resistance symbols and new ones drawn by children. A message was being prepared to send out across the stars. The Dominion had fallen back, but Kyara knew it was not the end. It was a beginning. Jonas stood beside her as the long-range transmitter booted up. Kyara's voice echoed across the courtyard, carried through makeshift speakers. We stood against the tide, she said. They came with numbers, with fire, with machines of fear, but they could not break us, because we chose each other. A murmur ran through the crowd. Let them hear this across the systems, she continued. Let every planet still under. Dominion chains know. Dravagnyne rose. The flame has returned. And this time she is not alone. Cheers rose from the crowd, rising into the rust-red sky. That night, there were no fireworks. No feast. Just warmth. Campfires lit the hillsides. Old stories were shared. Broken weapons were reforged into symbols. Some people laughed. Some cried. Some just breathed. Jonas sat near the swamp, the very same toxic pool where it all began. The surface still bubbled, slow and thick, but the air didn't seem as heavy anymore. Kyara joined him. Sitting on the rock beside his. He glanced at the water. Still looks like death, she chuckled. Death can also be a door, he nodded. Yeah, I guess it was. They were quiet a while. Then, Jonas looked up. You could leave now, you know. Find your people. Build a new fleet. I could, she said, but I won't. Why? Because the fight is not only out there, it's here, in broken villages. In forgotten homes, in rebuilding, he smirked. So you're staying? Yes, she said. And so are you. He raised an eyebrow. That obvious, huh? You've already rebuilt half the valley's power grid. What can I say? He said. It's hard to walk away from a planet full of things to fix. They both laughed. Then the wind shifted. A runner came sprinting down the hill, shouting, "A signal!" he cried. An incoming message from orbit. Jonas and Kyara exchanged a look. They followed the runner to the main comms. Tent. The screen blinked with static. Then came a voice. Clear. Not Dominion. Not a threat, but something else. To the people of Dravag-9, this is Captain Thal from the Freestar Resistance. We received your signal. We heard about the flame, and we're bringing everything we've got. Weapons, medics, fighters. You lit the fire. Now we're coming to help. Jonas stared. Breath caught. Kyara closed her eyes. They heard us. She whispered. In the days that followed, the sky filled not with enemy ships, but with allies. Rusted freighters, rebel corvettes, even tiny scout craft from planets thought long dead. They carried supplies, messages, survivors, and something far more powerful belief. The movement began to spread, not just from Dravag-9, but from everywhere. The Dominion had once claimed, and at the heart of it, a flame reborn, a mechanic, with burned hands, a warrior who rose from the swamp, a blade forged in stars. Months later, in the deepest corner of the galaxy, inside the cold marble halls of the Threx High Command, a message played on repeat. The flame has returned. Dravag-9 resists. She is not alone. And the Dominion ruthless, vast. Ancient shivered for the first time in centuries. Far from their empire. On a red broken world filled with fire and hope, Kyara walked beside Jonas as they surveyed the newest outpost. Fresh walls. Running. Water. Solar towers humming with light. You know, Jonas said, I never wanted to be a warrior. You still aren't, Kyara said. You're something rarer. What's that? A builder? A protector. A beginning. He grinned. I can live with that. She looked at him, the swamp at their backs, the stars ahead. We all can. The sky cracked open like glass. Threx dropship screamed down from orbit, leaving trails of fire across the heavens. The ground trembled beneath their engines. Drones poured from the bellies of the black vessels, swarming machines with plasma eyes and claws sharp enough to tear steel. Warwalkers, 3 stories high, landed hard on the cliffs, shaking the valley with each step. Dominion banners unfurled across the hills, 3 black spikes in a blood-red circle, the symbol of submission, the promise of annihilation. But in the Valley of Shards, no one bowed. Kyara stood at the front line, the sterori blade humming at her back. Its glow was softer now, like a breath before a scream. Her eyes scanned the battlefield, counting enemy shapes in the mist. Beside her, Jonas tightened the straps of his chestplate, fingers moving fast, precise. He wasn't a soldier, but he was ready. His voice was low. "We don't win this with numbers." Kyara nodded. "We win it with will." Behind them, the ragtag resistance took their positions. Old rebels, runaway miners, exiled Aeons, even children with repurposed drone, armor and hand-welded shields. Jonas's machines lined the valley turrets built from salvage, MP mines buried beneath the cracked crystal ground, traps hidden beneath holographic cloaks. The land itself had become their ally. Then silence. For a breath, everything was still. Then came the sound, a long, deep horn that echoed through the canyon like death waking from sleep. "They're signaling," Kyara said. "They want us to fear them." Jonas drew the starry blade. It pulsed brighter in his grip, responding to his touch like it had known him all along. "Then let's disappoint them." The first wave struck like a storm. Threx drones swarmed from the cliffs, raining plasma rounds. Into the resistance lines, shields sparked, ground exploded. Fighters dove behind makeshift walls. But Kyara moved like lightning, spinning, leaping, the blade in her hands cutting arcs of burning light through the air. Each swing tore machines apart, their metal shells bursting into fire and ash. Jonas held the left flank. He ducked behind. A broken pillar activated an EMP net with a slap of his palm. 5 drones dropped instantly, limbs twitching. He pulled a pulse wrench from his belt and jammed it into the chest of a fallen hunter that tried to rise. "Not today," he muttered. Screams echoed down the ridge as a war walker crushed through. A barricade, firing plasma from twin cannons. Kyara shouted to her fighters, "Split formation. Draw it into the valley mouth." Jonas sprinted to the com tower, rewired a cluster of exposed circuits, and activated the valley's backup cannon, a massive relic from a forgotten war, now stitched back together with scavenged parts and duct-taped. "Hope, cannons live," he yelled. "Fire," Kyara called. A beam of searing blue light ripped through the valley, slicing through the walker's knee joint. It collapsed, groaning like a wounded god. But the Threx kept coming. New waves descended. Among them, a commander taller than the rest, wrapped in dark armor that shimmered like oil and void. His helmet bore the insignia of the Dominion elite. He saw Kyara. And pointed. "You," he growled through his vox amp. "You should be dead." Kyara stepped forward, blade glowing. "I was." The commander charged. The ground cracked beneath him. Their blades met with a scream of metal and energy. Kyara twisted, dodged, countered. Their duel blazed across the field, each strike sending shockwaves through the battle. Jonas watched from behind cover, hard hammering, but never losing. Focus. He fired pulse rounds into advancing drone clusters, pulled injured fighters to safety, activated every trap they'd laid. He wasn't a warrior, but he was the mind behind the flame. And together, they held the line. Minutes stretched into an hour. Resistance bent, but did not break. Then, the breakthrough. A group of Threx soldiers breached the northern shield generator. Jonas saw it too late. 4 Dominion troopers raced toward the central hub, the one controlling all valley defenses. "No, no, no," he whispered, scrambling toward them. He tackled one, jammed a plasma knife into its arm joint. Sparks flew. Another fired. Jonas ducked, rolled, hit a switch on his gauntlet. The hidden turret sprang to life and lit the corridor with fire. The hub was saved. But Jonas lay panting, his side bleeding. "Stay awake," he told himself. Stay. Standing. On the ridge, Kyara's fight reached its end. The commander raised a war spear charged with Dominion energy and brought it down with both hands. Kyara caught it with the flat of the starry blade. Energy screamed. Sparks danced between them. Then she shifted. Pivoted. And drove the blade clean through his chest. The commander fell. His helmet rolled across the stone. Empty. And for the first time in the battle, the Threx faltered. Kyara are eased. The blade high, push forward, she cried. The resistance surged. Jonas activated the final trap, a field of charged pylons buried beneath the southern ridge. When the enemy stepped in, lightning exploded from the ground, frying circuits and melting armor. The Dominion line broke, and then they ran. Black ships pulled back. Remaining drones collapsed, their control nodes gone. The red sky began to clear. In the middle of the smoking valley, Kyara stood alone. The flame, alive again. Jonas limped toward her, bleeding, dirty, half-burned. She turned to him, blade still, glowing. You did well, she said. He smiled through cracked lips. I still prefer fixing engines. You fixed more than that, she said softly. He looked around at the field. The fallen, the standing, the breathing. They had survived. Not by miracle. But by will.